Hey everyone, this is Steve Krause, and welcome to Writing 444, Writing 544, Writing for the Web. This is a little introductory video about what we're going to be doing this semester. I don't do these very often. I do introductory videos, but I don't do a lot of other videos. So this is probably the longest one for me that you're going to see this semester. We'll see what happens. So pay attention to this. And then do the discussion as I'll explain here in a second, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let me bring up the course on Canvas. Okay, I'm showing you the student view, which is why there's this pink part on there, because this is the screen that it should look like to you. This is the homepage for the class. I'm going to come back to that in a second. You obviously figured out what to do, though, because you clicked there and all that kind of stuff. But let me go to the syllabus. All the information about me. My last name is actually Krause as opposed to Kraus. I respond to either one, but office hours, email, and stuff like that. There's a little bit about the course. So this is a class I've been teaching for well over 25 years, and it's really changed a lot in different ways. I mean, when I first started teaching it, it was a lot more emphasis on coding. There was a lot of emphasis on creating standalone websites and things like that. A lot of stuff has changed, though, obviously, in the last 25, 30 years with the way that the internet works. And so the class is now really about, there's still a discussion of coding, because I do think that anybody who's interested in working in some kind of professional capacity in the broadest sense of creating content and writing and text and stuff like that online, right? Writing for the web. I think that anybody who's going to engage in that probably needs to know some basics of code. And that's why we still start with HTML and CSS. But then we move into working with WordPress, which is as a content management system as opposed to a blogging software. And we talk a lot more about social media, both in terms of how to write for it and analyzing campaigns for it and things like that. So that's the ways in which the course has really shifted quite a bit. There's two books in the class, as you can see there. There's this book called Content by Kate Eckhorn, and it's a little paperback from MIT Press. They do a series like that. And then there's this book called Everybody Writes by Anne Handley. Get the most current edition. This is 2023, I believe, and it's the most current one. These books are a little schizophrenic, and writing for the web is a little schizophrenic, right? On the one hand, you've got somebody like Handley who's very enthusiastic and very positive and is all about how you can market your product, be that a toothpaste or a nonprofit or a club or whatever, using and how you should write in online spaces to do that, to reach customers, to get attention, to sell stuff. And I mean sell not just in terms of money, but just, a part of the attention economy, if you will. Okay. This book is essentially problematizing all that. And this is where we get into space like, is what we're doing here really content? Are we just trying to get eyeballs for the sake of getting eyeballs? How does this figure in with surveillance capitalism? All kinds of stuff like that. Okay. And that's really the kind of yin yang schizophrenic approach I think that everybody has to take with how we engage with these medias, right? Because social media is not Facebook, Instagram, things like that. There are good things about it, but there are also horrible things about it. And I think that part of what is really important, especially for people, again, who are going to engage in this stuff professionally, you have to understand that. You have to work with the good things and understand the ethical issues and try to minimize the problems and all that kind of stuff. Okay. The links I have here are for on Amazon, but you can get these books wherever you want. And of course, these are also available at the EMU bookstore. I also talk here a little bit about you need to have some sort of way of taking notes and things like that. And you shouldn't just read stuff on the screen. And what I'm getting at is that a lot of the readings that we're doing are just online. And, it's pretty easy to just kind of, scroll and not really pay attention to it. So I'd really encourage you to print them out, which I know is kind of a pain, but that's works with a pen, right? take notes on the readings in a separate file, like a separate Google Doc or something like that. Or if you're like me, I have a iMac or iPad, and what I use software on this to annotate PDFs. And I've seen a lot of students who've had things like that lately, and I think that that's pretty handy. Okay. All right. Now let me talk about this next section here: coding, computers, and technology. And you can read this on your own. Writing 444, there's no, and 544, there's no prerequisites. Okay. There's no previous experience necessary. I will help you as we go, and you'll be fine. However, there is a lot of technical stuff in this class. We will be doing some coding things. We will be doing working with WordPress and installations of software and all that kind of stuff. You'll be spending a fair amount of time online, engaging in social media to write about how your companies and stuff like that engage in social. So there's a lot of like online kinds of stuff, both in terms of engaging with the media, but also doing some technical stuff. And my experience has been a lot of times English majors, like kind of folks are trying to avoid that. So if you're one of those kinds of English majors, you'll be fine. You should use this as an opportunity to try to get over that a little bit. But I do want to point out, you might need some extra time. Okay. The other thing is that you might need some tools. Sometimes students try to take this class with a very old laptop. And I'm not saying you have to have the best, brightest tools to do this stuff, but if you've been thinking about getting a new computer, this is not a bad time to do that. If you need more help with the technology stuff, let me know, and also ask people in the class, because I guarantee you there's at least one person in this class who knows more about the technical stuff with this than I do. That's how it happens. That's what ends up happening every semester. I also want to talk a little bit about the online format and attendance sorts of issues. Okay. It's an online class, but it's not a self-study class. And it's not a class where you can just sort of like check in whenever you want. There's a schedule, Monday through Friday. We do things Monday to Wednesday and Wednesday to Friday. Okay. But a couple of other things along these lines. You got to use your EMU Google account. Okay. Don't use whatever else, your own account, for class work and class activities. You've got to check your EMU email every single day. I don't know what happened, but a couple years ago, I seem to have students who just, in an online class, who wouldn't check their email. And it's like, if you don't check your email, I have no way of getting a hold of you. Okay. And that's kind of a problem if something goes wrong. And that's what I get where to continue back to this, which is, under no circumstances will I accept an excuse for a problem that a result of you not reading and responding to an email regarding the class. If I email you about something and it results in you failing an assignment because you did it wrong, and because you didn't respond to my email, that's a problem. Okay. The other thing I'll mention here too is, under no circumstances will I accept a lack of internet access. So if your computer suddenly breaks, if your significant other moves out and is paying for the Wi-Fi bill and there's no longer paying for that, you're going to have to sort that out. Okay. The other thing I mentioned here is this is not a self-study class, and there's issues in terms of online attendance. You have to do things Monday to Wednesday, and Wednesday to Friday. If you miss too many of these blocks, then you're not going to pass the class. And it's just like attendance in a face-to-face class. I've had students before ask me questions like, in online classes, it's like, I want to take this class online because it provides me all kinds of scheduling benefits, but I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks in the middle of the semester and I won't have internet access. Well, that's a problem. Like, if you have internet, if you go on a trip someplace and you have internet access and you can do the classwork from Brazil or China or wherever else, that's great. But the thing is that if you're just gone, that's just like missing 2 weeks of a face-to-face class too, right? So keep that in mind, that if you just disappear for a length of time in this class, that's going to be kind of a problem. And you probably end up failing. But people don't usually do that, I should point out. I think usually people understand the necessity of being here throughout the term. But just to let you know, the class is basically broken up into 2 parts in terms of the grade. There's participation, and then there are the essays, okay? Or the writing projects, I should say. Participation is largely based on the discussions that we're going to have about the readings and activities, okay? We have 2 discussions for today, and these are the 2 different types of discussions. One type of discussion is basically a past, complete, incomplete discussion. So with this video and this post here about going over the course basics, all you need to do is read through this, and if you have questions, by all means ask. If you don't have questions, all you have to do is post something like, I read this, or I watched the video, or sounds good to me, or something like that, okay? Now, the next post that's due for today is the introduce yourself discussion. That is a required discussion. That's when I'll give a letter grade to, okay? To get the best grade on that, you need to begin the discussion, in this case on Monday, write your introduction, and you need to respond to 2 of your peers at least 6 hours apart, okay? So I explained this here in terms of you want to write something that's a little bit more, about 150 words or so, that's something that's a little bit more basic than, you don't want to just say I agree or whatever. Do these in a very timely fashion, and this explains the sort of grade part of how this all kind of works. You can begin the discussions a little bit early sometimes, but not late. And the most important part of it is begin these discussions on time. Okay. Now, 2 questions that people give me all the time is like, why is you so serious about the beginning thing, like on Monday and Wednesday? And that's because if everybody were to wait until the deadline, which would be like Wednesday or Friday, then we wouldn't have time to talk. Everyone would be all of a sudden posting at the end there, and it would just be that. If you begin on Monday, then you've got 3 days just for people to sort of join in and read what other people have said and engage in the conversation. Because remember, since it's an asynchronous class, we're all engaging in this in slightly different patterns and times and things like that, okay? What I recommend is post your initial discussion on Monday, whenever is the easiest way for you to do that. And of course, Monday goes from 12 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock at night. So you have all Monday, right? Then post your initial discussion and then come back to it either later that day or the next day and see what other people said, at least 6 hours apart, comment on somebody else there, and then come back to it again Tuesday or Wednesday. This gets into the why 6 hours apart thing. Well, that's important because, again, I want you to engage in the discussion with as many people potentially as possible. So let's say you post an initial discussion on Monday at noon, and once you post, you can see other people's posts. And then you see that there are 3 other people who have posted their introductions, and you responded to 2 of them, boom, 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 right then, and that's it. Well, that's not really engaging. You're in the class discussion for like a total of 15 minutes, right? That's not really engaging. So that's why I want you to like post and then come back and look at what other people have to say, and then read what other people comments, and then come back again. Okay. It seems confusing, but I think that you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. And I'll give you some feedback in the first week or so of how you're participating in the discussions to let you know if you're on the right or wrong track. Okay. Very quickly for now, let me just mention the writing projects, because this is a discussion we're going to have on Wednesday of this week. There's basically 3 projects that everybody needs to do, and then there's a graduate student project. We're going to start with the Codecademy WordPress, which is not really a writing project so much as it is learning some of the computer tools, and we'll sort of really jump into that right away. These 2 projects are kind of like semester ongoing things that we'll be really working on pretty much in different stages all semester long. And they're both kind of due basically at the end of the semester as well. So this will have to do with a lot. Well, this is where we'll bulk of the class in terms of our reading discussions and our activities and exchanges and things like that. Graduate students need to do this additional project, which is interviewing someone who's a professional in the field and reporting back to the class on that. And those interviews will themselves be something that we'll read as readings in the class. Turn stuff in on time, use MLA style. If you're going to be late with something, let me know before, and I will usually give you an extension. If you don't do that, then I'll dock your grade, okay? In order to pass the course, this is this last part here, you've got to complete all the projects. So in other words, if you decided that you didn't really want to do the Codecademy WordPress tutorial because you'll just get a C if you do these other things, well, no, you'd actually fail the class, okay? There's 2 issues of fine print here I wanted to bring up. One is the first one about privacy. This is a little unusual. This is something I don't do for most normal classes, but just keep in mind, you're going to be doing work in things like, say, WordPress, and also doing other things potentially on social media that are in the public domain. Okay. In other words, they're not completely behind the firewall of the course. Now, realistically, I'm not too worried about it, and I don't think you should be too worried about it either. After all, the only way people are going to get a link to your WordPress site is by visiting the class. And if you can't get it, if you're not in the class, you're not going to be able to see it. I just mentioned that because some people have different ideas about how private or public they want to be online. If you've got some concerns about that, let me know, and we can talk and work things out. I have never had any students who've had any problems with this. I've never had any problems with this, but I'm throwing it out there as something to think about. The other issue, as I'm sure you've heard about, is there's this whole thing called ChatGPT. Okay. Now, I'm very interested in ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, and we'll probably talk about some of that as the semester goes. And one of the ways in which AI software has become potentially very useful is in fields like writing for the web. Right, a lot of computer coding is being done with AI nowadays. A lot of sort of boilerplate writing, things like that. So, and I think it's going to figure prominently in the future going in towards these things. So I'm not afraid of these things, and I don't really see a lot of opportunities for students in a class like this to cheat with the AI. I just want to point out, though, that if you take a big chunk of text from an AI and just plop it into an essay, that's cheating. So you shouldn't do that. Okay. And then there's also the stuff here about campus resources like the, Learning Center and the Counseling Center and stuff like that. I'm happy to talk with anybody about those things as well. Right now, let me go back briefly to the class homepage and sort of explain how this works. I think you've kind of figured it out already because you're here, but a lot of times I think students want to just look at this to-do list. I would really discourage that for all kinds of different reasons, not the least of which is that sometimes it's just wrong. I mean, if I screw up a date, how I enter it into Canvas or something like that, this page here, this is always going to be right. Okay. So in other words, August 28th is the first day of class. You found this. This is the complete, incomplete discussion. This is the required discussion. They introduce yourselves. And this is what we're doing on the 30th, right? So you'll start again on Wednesday, read and review the assignments. And then the first discussion there about some readings about HTML and CSS in the web. Now it goes on like this. And again, the first unit that we're getting into is working on creating, learning how to do HTML and WordPress. And this stuff, the Codecademy is the thing we're using to learn HTML. This stuff is going to be due on September 25th. Okay. And for the most part, it's pretty sort of set up for the first 5 weeks here. Now, there's a big part in the middle, though, where we get a little bit more into the to-be arranged things. And again, I've taught this class a lot before, and so I have some pretty good ideas of where I'm going with this, but I want to make some adjustments as I go based on how you're doing with some of the exercises and about readings that I find and things like that. But one thing that you'll note is there's an assignment due here, and then there's really a lot of time before the next 2 are due. Now, this is not to say we're not going to be working on this stuff all semester, but they're both kind of end projects. Okay. We're going to, be spending time working on both of these things at the same time, kind of going back and forth on how we talk about them. And then they'll be due close to the same time at the end. Okay. Graduate students will have to do these projects a little bit earlier, and your due date as a graduate student for when that's going to be depends on when you sign up to share it with the rest of the class. I think that's it for now. So again, welcome aboard. Again, if you got questions about any of the assignments or what I just talked about, by all means, ask that below. At a minimum, basically say that you love the video. Do the other assignment where you need to introduce yourself, and we'll get up to speed for the class here just like that. As I always like to say these things, at the end of these things, I'll see you in London.